Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on 10 public speaking statistics that you need to know. My name's Peter Dew and I'm a public speaking trainer and coach, and I love to unlock people's potential through the spoken word. And as I read more and more about leadership and leadership skills, the ability to articulate, to influence, to persuade is one of the key skills, and it's one of the skills that people struggle with. So anything I can do to help you as you move forward in your desire to influence people, to move into management or leadership roles, just to change the world through your spoken word, your passion, your ideas, that's my role. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Tracy. We've only just got underway, and 10 public speaking statistics that you need to know. There may be more. All right, for those of you who haven't been on one of my webinars before, and Tracy, I know this is your first time, a couple of you have been before, ask questions as we go. You have a Q&A box. Just type the question in at any moment. Also type in comments, so don't just limit yourself to questions. Maybe you disagree with me, or maybe you have a similar scenario that you've experienced. Take notes and think and apply the knowledge to your own presentations, your own public speaking. So, Stephen, your next presentation you've got coming up, is there anything from today that you will use to adjust to enhance your planned presentation? Or if you cast your mind back, is there anything that you recognize from today's webinar that if you'd done this differently in a previous workshop, not that you dwell on the past or a previous presentation, may have enhanced your presentation? It's about applying the knowledge I share with you. And not all the things I say you will agree with 100%, but let's use it as food for thought, food for discussion. All right, the first statistic, and some of you will know of this, especially if you've attended one of my workshops, it's around the first 15 seconds. It's about your first impressions, and you only have one chance to make a good first impression. You can have second and third chances to make second and third impressions, but that first impression matters. So the words that come out of your mouth in the first 30 seconds also matter. Behavioral psychologists call this the rule of primacy. Starting with some statistics, starting with some data, starting with a quote, starting with a story that creates relevance and lets me know that I'm in the room for my issue, for my problem, it's a really good way to start. Morning, Lynn. We've just got underway. And the 15 seconds of a good first impression is around the way you dress, the way you walk on platform, the way you look. Can I suggest that this gentleman's first impression is maybe a little bit aggressive, pointing at audiences, telling people what to do is not really what you want. The smile is so important, the stance. I would recommend this person comes away from the lectern at some stage in their presentation. It may be at the beginning of a presentation. If it's a big conference, you kind of introduced at the lectern and you take over the lectern from the MC or the chairperson and you start speaking, but you need to make a good first impression. And when I work with people that have a fear of public speaking, and I ask them, if you were to coach me and I had nerves around public speaking, what were some of the things you'd tell me to do? And what they say is, well, smile, stand upright, don't fidget, look confident, don't slouch, raise your shoulders. So all of those things that you would tell someone to do if you were coaching them to make them appear more confident when they walk on stage, they're the things you apply to yourself. then also make the content really important. That first 30 seconds, really important. That call to action, that statistic, that story that gets people in the palm of your hand. First 30 seconds matters. It's called the rule of primacy. First words apparently stick. First impressions apparently matter. Job interview, the way you dress, you guys know what to do. Don't dismiss the first 15 to 30 seconds. You have the ability to script that. You have the ability to prepare how you walk on stage, the first words that come out of your mouth. The rest of your presentation should be more spontaneous, but you do have that ability to say the first 30 seconds in a strong, powerful, memorable way. By default, good morning everyone, my name's Peter Dew. It's a real pleasure to be here. Can I get you to turn your mobile phones off? Is not a powerful first 30 seconds. Eye contact, really important. But you need the right amount of eye contact. Research has shown that 3 seconds is the sweet spot when looking at someone. Longer than 3 seconds can be creepy. Less than 3 seconds is a little bit evasive, a little bit car salesman. You know, that honesty, that integrity, because I'm not prepared to make good eye contact with you, may make me feel dishonest, appear dishonest, or appear evasive. So your eye contact's so important. Even with 150 people in the room, you pick up individuals and you dwell on them for 2 to 3 seconds. Then you move to somewhere else in the room, another 3 seconds. Then move to the other side or down the back. Pick on someone, dwell on them for 3 seconds, then down the front for 3 seconds. In the big room, when you go down the back corners, the left or the right corners, the 5 to 10 people around that person will feel you're looking at them. So please don't worry if you've got 150 people in the room and you've looked at 120 and you're wondering where's the 30 people I missed my eye contact with. That really doesn't matter, because in the bigger rooms, as long as you pick out an individual, 5, 10 people around them, depending on the size of the audience, will feel that you've been making eye contact with them. The other one with your eye contact is your peripheral vision. So while making eye contact, you still need to read the rest of the room. If they're falling asleep, if they're rolling their eyeballs, if they're folding their arms in a gesture of, I don't agree with you, or even shaking their head, no, that's not correct. So really important that you understand the power of your eye contact. What we want is, as people leave your auditorium, your presentation, you want them to feel like you've had a conversation with them. Everybody needs to walk out feeling that, oh wow, Peter's just been speaking to me, as opposed to that look above the top of people's heads and speak to everyone in a kind of a group speak. I want to have individual conversations with all 150 people. My eye contact allows me to do that. Finish on time. An amazing statistic. 100% of audiences will appreciate you ending on time or a little bit ahead of time. Going over time is a big no-no. Going over time puts pressure on the next speaker. Going over time puts pressure on the whole agenda, your morning tea breaks, your lunchtime breaks. And if someone before you has gone over time and you as a speaker bring the whole schedule, the whole conference back on time, audiences will appreciate you doing that as well. And it's about having that flexibility of your presentation to shed 5 or 10 minutes, have the same impact, the same message, assuming you're speaking for 45 minutes or for a 60-minute presentation. Having that ability to prune that 5 to 10 minutes, but still have the same impact and the same core message. Need to finish on time, really important. And I've seen some speakers say, I've got 45 minutes, I've started 10 minutes late, so you won't mind if I use my full 45 minutes. Yeah, we do. If the conference is ending at 5 and I've got a 5:10 train to catch, or I've got something else to do, and you've just stated you're going to go to 5:10, which is beyond the end of the conference, I'm not going to appreciate you, even if you stick to your allocated 45 minutes. I know it seems unfair, I know it seems tough, but you need to stick to time, your allocated time, but also the agenda and the conference time, which means sometimes we need to cut our time. The average attention span, it's getting shorter and shorter. For a presentation, I'm hearing it's around 8 to 10 minutes. I remember when I went to university and the lecturer would say, you know, we've got a 60-minute lecture, I'm only going to talk to you for 50 minutes. That's your concentration span. After 50 minutes, you're going to start to get fidgety. But I'm seeing that attention spans are being brought down shorter and shorter. And a good rule of thumb is every 8 to 10 minutes, you need to reinvigorate your audience. You need to wake them up. You need to do something. And one of the things that I've learned from a great speaking trainer named Matt Church is the tell, show, share, and apply. Goes a little bit like this. So you tell people something, and then you show them a slide. Oh, and the other one is if you don't want to share, you can do the ask. So at the start of this presentation, I asked you how you're going to apply this to your information, how you're going to apply this information to an upcoming speech, or a previous speech. And then you can, that's people internalising, then you get them to share. So turn to the person next to you. What's one thing you've learned so far? And then give some more information. That should be an E on the end of share, excuse my scribbling. Matt Church would argue that that cycle, you should run that every 10 minutes. And of course, some of you are auditory learners, so you want to hear my voice. You'll love the sound of my voice. Some of you won't give a damn about my voice. You'll find my voice quite monotone and boring. Some of you love visuals. You want to see the slides. You want to see my non-verbals, which is really hard to do via webinar, but I have got my webinar cam open. But a lot of my gestures I'm noticing are below the screen, so maybe I need to adjust my screen for future webinars. Then I can ask you to apply it to yourself. As soon as I ask you, does this make sense? Or what could you do differently? At this point in time, is there anything that you might change? Are you going to start stronger now, first 30 seconds? I know Murray already does that. He knows the importance of starting strong, but I'm not sure about the others of you. And then if I'm in a bigger group, so I'm now in the keynote, that ask, I can ask you to share. So these are really the same things, but that gets to the kinesthetic people, those that need to apply it internally. Tell, show, ask. Every 8 to 10 minutes, ask people a question. That just gives you another 10 minutes. That resets the concentration clock. Are there any questions on that? That beautiful little cycle, tell people some information, show them some visuals, ask them to apply it, ask them some questions, or ask them to share with the person next to them in a bigger breakout room or a bigger conference, a bigger seminar. And if you're doing a longer seminar, you can even ask people to find someone they haven't spoken to before, and that gets them out of their chairs and moving. Any questions around that? Yeah, some people just do the visuals the whole time, and that's called death by PowerPoint. And if you just talk, then those that need the visual learning are going to start to also tune out. All right. Number 5, your body language matters. Old data, University of California, Los Angeles campus, but Michael Grinder, who's someone who I follow, Grinder, Michael Grinder, probably the world's #1 nonverbal communication expert, says about 90% of our message of what we do is nonverbal communication. So whether you use some old research from University of California, which is this statistics, Michael Grinder's impressions, the reality is your body language is so important. And I think that if you add these together, that's 80 to 90%. So the voice, the quality of voice, the pause, the elimination of ums and ahs, the passion that comes through your voice, the sincerity. And you've probably heard me say before, where your nonverbal communication and the words you speak, so your message, where they are not congruent, the nonverbal will always trump the words that you speak, the verbal. The nonverbal will always trump the words you speak if they're not congruent. So if you walk on stage with a frown and in a slow and sleepy manner and say, I'm really excited to be here today. In fact, this is the highlight of my week. People will not believe one word you've said. So really important. Do you know what your body language says about you? And I mentioned about first impressions count. You only have one chance at making a really good first impression. What is your first impression? What does your body say about you, your nonverbal communication? Are you distracting? Are you confident? Do you have good nonverbal vocabulary? Last 30 seconds matters. This is called the rule of recency. This is about nailing your ending. And according to behavioral psychologists, the last words we say matter. A soft ending is, thank you very much. You've been a really nice group of people. I've enjoyed my time with you. I hope to see you again sometime in the future. That's a soft landing. And apparently you're going to remember that words which don't have much impact. So the last 30 seconds should be a really strong summary, a call to action, a memorable statement, something that kind of nails your take-home message. So if you only do one thing today, which of these 10 statistics are you going to use in your next presentation to have greater impact? Or whatever your call to action is. There is a little tool that I teach, and we've said the rule of primacy. So this is your first 30 seconds, first 15 seconds, and this is the rule of recency. So this is your last 30 seconds. If those words kind of say the same thing, your opening and your conclusion kind of say the same thing or emphasize the same point, that's called topping and tailing your core message. So your core message is safely encased, safely protected, or amplified by your opening rule of primacy, the first 30 seconds, and your closing rule of recency, your last 30 seconds. So you have no doubt what my core message is because I have simply encased them, I've topped and tailed them with the rule of primacy and the rule of recency. Tell stories. You need to share your stories. What is your story? I'm not talking about a bedtime story. It doesn't have to be your personal story, your personal journey. It's just a little anecdote, a case study, a project you've worked on, some families you've worked with to resolve conflict. And within the story is a point, the point that leads us to your core message. Why tell stories? This research comes out of Stanford University. And I saw Professor Conger, C-O-N-G-E-R, present in Perth about 3 years ago. And this is the data he put up there. And I spoke about auditory learners, visual learners, and kinesthetic learners. So the simple facts are, if I talk to you, so I'm going to remove the slides, no handout notes, no pictures, no flip charts. 1 in 10 of you is going to remember what I said in a week's time, 10%. That means 90% of people have forgotten what you've said. I give you your pictures, I give you your images back. The visual learners are happy, and I've tripled my retention rate to around 30%. Still not good. 7 out of 10 of you walk out of the room and you're not going to remember. If I tell you a story that creates an emotional, a visceral, a gut response, then I've increased your retention rate to 75%. So the stories of success, of overcoming adversity, of bringing a project back on track that was going pear-shaped, of finding an innovative or a disruptive funding solution that brought your budget back on track, that's what people remember. What stories are you going to tell to illustrate your key points? I'm going to pause for a moment. Are there any questions at this point in time? So I've got a comment. Engineers, geologists, scientists don't like stories. Yes and no. They may not. So in telling the story, I'm not saying dismiss. I'm dismissing the data. So you need the data, you need the statistics, and they apply to the neurological response. The other one is the story or the case study applies to the gut. You need both. So the business story, as I call them, the business story is, here's the data, here's the information, here's the return on investment, the break-even analysis, and here's the story, here's the anecdote, here's the case study. When you bring them together, that creates the memorable story and the reason for change. So Andrew Thorburn, who's been in the news lately, Andrew Thorburn is the CEO of National Australia Bank, talks about the need to change, the need to do things differently, and the need for their managers to model the way. So his business message, his data is we need to model the way. We can't expect our branch managers, our other managers to follow us if we don't do the very things we want people to do. Then he tells a story about teaching his son how to drive, and his son changes lanes in a freeway poorly. He indicates twice and then moves across, nearly causing an accident, so to speak. And he says to his son, you can't do this. You need to indicate for 5 or 6 flicks of the flicker, look to your rear vision mirror, allow people to speed up, to slow down so that you can merge safely. And then his son's response is, yes, Dad, I know that that's how you do it. I'm just following the way you change lanes. And so he brings it back. If I want my son to do it the right way, I need to model the way. If we want our managers to do the right thing, then we as CEOs, as C-suite people, need to model the way. Now, I've given that in a very brief, non-storytelling mode, but Andrew Thorburn uses storytelling to nail his business points. Health and safety. There's the data around health and safety on mine sites, but those stories and those near misses that illustrate the data you're trying to portray are what people remember more than the pure data. So I think you do need to tell stories. 75% of people suffer from pre-speech anxiety. I am one of them. I do public speaking, I do keynote speaking, I do this for my living. I get nervous before every presentation, before every workshop. I used to speak a lot at Toastmasters. I used to speak at Toastmasters competition. I get nervous before every presentation. The nerves are never going to go away. So as soon as you can acknowledge that Most of you out there will have some nerves, some anxiety prior to speaking. Just get over yourself and move on. It is normal. It is the majority of the world's population. Your introduction. So I know start strong, 15, 30 seconds, make a good first impression, but in planning a speech, the experts are saying you need to devote around 10% of your time to your introduction. This is about moving on beyond grabbing attention. You now need to move into rapport, into connection. So the rapport and the connection is where you build trust. And now you might have permission to teach, permission to put forward a new way of thinking, permission to disrupt, to be innovative, to tell people that they're not doing things the right way. But to come on board and start straight away into your message, especially if it's a change management or it's a tough message, if you haven't taken time to build rapport, to build trust, to connect, and they reckon 10% of your time should be devoted to that rapport and that connection, to outline the problem or the issue that you're going to propose a solution. So just a rough rule of thumb, you're going to speak for 5 minutes, 50 seconds, 1 minute should probably be your introduction before you go into content. If you're speaking for 60 minutes, you probably need a 6 to 7 minute introduction before you have permission to go into content. Just a rule of thumb. And the final statistic, very few people seek help to deal with their nerves or to improve their public speaking. So if you look at the number of people who persistently go to Toastmasters, persistently get a public speaking coach, or do a series of public speaking workshops, only 8% of people who have that fear or those nerves seek professional advice to improve their public speaking. And those people who maybe don't have fear but are not good at public speaking, i.e. they just do verbal diarrhea, scattergun approach, I'm going to say a lot of stuff, hopefully some of it will stick. They don't seek professional help. So as you want to climb the ladder, as you want to have more impact, do you need to get a coach? Do you need to spend more time at Toastmasters, different Toastmasters clubs, go to Rostrum, advanced Toastmasters clubs? Do you need to do a communication or an influential workshop? So there are 10 statistics. You can do with them what you wish. First 15 seconds matters, eye contact, 3 seconds is the sweet spot. Audiences want you, need you to finish on time. Got a short attention span, do that, tell, show, ask or share. Your body language, 80, 90, 95% of what you say. End strong, use your stories if you want good retention rate. Most people, the majority, suffer from some anxiety. Spend time building rapport at your introduction, and feel free to seek professional help if you are in that majority that still have some nerves or want to improve their public speaking. As I said in my introduction, it's one of the skills that goes with leadership. It's one of the skills that goes with management, but so few people seek help. My next webinar, how to connect with your audience. So this is in the 10 minutes. First 10 minutes, how do you build rapport? How do you build trust? How to connect with your audience. Monday the 22nd of May, 10 a.m. to 10:30, not 9 a.m. Upcoming workshops, I've just finished a big road trip in Victoria, so I don't have any Victorian workshops. Yes, I've got Melbourne, 26th of May, around courageous leadership, giving and receiving feedback. Presentation skills in Perth. We're going to Broome for the first time in October, so feel free to share that knowledge. You know how to find out about my workshops. Go to my website, Communications Experts, or peterdew.com.au. If you haven't seen my story, I had a film crew 2 weeks ago do a movie on me, my life as living as a person who stutters. Their Facebook page is Stories Out Loud. We've got about 23,000 likes in just over a week. I'd love you to go to Stories Out Loud. Mine is story number 3, and you can watch that movie. It's a 6-minute movie. Like it if you wish, share it with any friends or colleagues on your own Facebook page, and we'd really appreciate that. Are there any further questions on those statistics that I've just shared with you, on the upcoming workshops? Are there any webinars you'd like to hear me do? 30 minutes, short, sharp, any skill that you'd appreciate to hear from me. As you know, I record these webinars and I make them available. So even if you can't attend, I can still share that webinar with you.